Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pharma Founders Academy. And today I have a very interesting topic for you. For every pharma founder, either in startup phase or growing phase, you will find today's topic very, very relevant for you if you want to really boost your business. Now, this is not going to be technical or product related at all. This is going to be about your people. I'm James Pereira, and I'm the founder of this channel as well as the Seven Figure Pharma Accelerator Program. My guest today is Associate Professor Dr. Tavleen Kaur, who is a certified workplace happiness coach from the Berkeley Institute of Wellbeing, California. So if you never thought about it, there is such a thing as a workplace happiness coach. And she currently serves as the head of the Center for Behavioral Insights at the Fortune Institute of International Business in New Delhi itself. And she earned her full-time PhD in employer branding from ICFAI, Hyderabad, and was a visiting research scholar at the University of Memphis, USA. So let me welcome Dr. Tavleen Kaur. Over to you, Dr. Tavleen. Anything else you want to add besides this fun stuff I just mentioned?
Thanks, James. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. But I think you pretty much covered everything. I'll take just 30 more seconds. Um, so yes, I'm a professor, someone who also I would say accidentally became a workplace happiness coach thanks to COVID. That was my trigger point to get into the happiness ecosystem. I got myself certified, and since then I have been helping organizations discover meaning and purpose in what they do. And by doing so, I help them become better employer brands. So my work primarily around, revolves around human behavior at work. How do we create and discover meaning and purpose in what we do? And I also feel I am a big time employee engagement enthusiast. So whatever I do, it is around all of this.
It's
Right.
interesting. You mentioned, Tavleen, that during COVID, which was a very sad time for the whole world, you decided to look at happiness. What did,
Right.
did, did COVID trigger you to go into this happiness field?
Right. So, actually, James, there were two triggers for me. When I was doing my doctorate, with my work was around employer branding. So while I was studying employer branding in detail, I realized that a lot of brands, they put a very rosy picture of themselves during the interview phase, right? That, hey, I'm going to be the best brand ever you will find. Come join me. They're not going to, give you a very real picture. They'll always put a very sanitized picture on their websites or on their YouTube testimonials. So when I started reading more about it, I realized now when these employees who come with a very rosy picture, they join the brand, their psychological contract is violated. They come with a very different picture, and when they join, no such promises are kept. And that is what, we call internal branding. So it's okay to hire people, but what are you doing to sustain them? Are you keeping your promises? And I think that was my first trigger to start exploring what makes people stay. And trust me, of course, salary is one important reason, but there were factors which were way beyond salary, which is how deeply do I feel connected to my brand, to my work, engagement, happiness, meaning. These were the factors which were coming out. So that was my first trigger, to start exploring uh, the real factors which make people stick to a brand. And then the second trigger was COVID. So when COVID happened, I could see, I was reading, there was media reports, media speculations. People, uh, I felt that the world is going to change. People are going to realize that there are other things which are more important in life, which is health, which is mental well-being, which is, do they have their purpose in life? And that was a second trigger for me to get more into depth of what is workplace happiness. And that is the time I got myself certified, as a workplace happiness coach. Uh, so yeah, so these were the two triggers. I was reading reports about countries like Denmark. Okay. Denmark, if you see, was one of the first countries to take workplace happiness seriously. Okay. Um, then you have Sweden, then you have countries like Bhutan, which do not measure their success through economic indicators like GDP or, all this stuff. They have their own indicator, which is gross national happiness. That how they are looking at successes, how happy, content, calm, perhaps you are with who you are. So these were, together. I'm just giving you the context why I got intrigued in exploring this theme, which is happiness and also very specific to workplace happiness. Right? I hope that
Tavleen,
answers.
Yes, it did. I mean,
Yeah.
very, very clear. At least we know what your motivation is for doing this, and that leads me to this, this thought that just came to my mind: motivation. There is quite a bit of literature out there that says that, well, there are two schools of thought. One says that motivation is intrinsic. The other says
Mhm.
motivation is extrinsic. And from my experience, what I have observed is that if a person, in the sales and marketing context, for example, if they do not have a love for money,
Mhm.
and one of the incentives is, or a huge part of their bonus increments and KPIs are all money based. The rewards are money based. It will not drive them because the extrinsic factor doesn't match their intrinsic factor. So in that light, I just wanted to ask you whether happiness is similar to that, whether it's intrinsic or are there extrinsic factors that can influence it?
I think there are two sides to look at it. And that's what the happiness literature talks about. When you're looking at happiness from an outside perspective, that happiness is outside of me. Okay, let's say bungee jumping. If I do bungee jumping, it's going to give me a sudden shot of happiness. You know, I'll get that adrenaline rush. Now, that sort of happiness is very short lived. For the moment, of course, it is also happiness, right? For that moment when I'm diving down, I feel that euphoria and I am happy. But when I'm looking at happiness, which is coming from outside of me, I will have a very short dose of happiness. But when we understand that happiness for longer term is actually inside of me, that the bungee jumping is actually inside of me. It's not dependent on, something which is outside of me. That is what is, real happiness. That even there is no bungee jumping, I'm as happy as I am when I am bungee jumping. That's the real, but the tougher, category or part of happiness. So, now when you talked about sales as an example, right, that for a salesperson to be successful, they have to have that love for money. I would not really agree to it. I would say if a salesperson has the love to make an impact by what they are selling, that is what will make them a better salesman. If the motivation is only to sell this XYZ product and get incentive out of it, I'm not sure if they'll really do great or they'll be really making an impact. But if I take sales as a profile with the lens that, okay, this product that I'm selling is making an impact, that is when I will find, okay, my sales function also is meaningful because it is creating an impact, it is solving a problem. So when I look at, that lens at sales or my product or let's say I'm selling an insurance policy, that's creating an impact in somebody's life. That is what, you know, uh, I talk about when I talk about meaning and purpose. So I'm not sure if salesmen should always be attracted to money. Of course, money is an outcome which will come. But if we look at the impact that my work is creating, I think that is where the real meaning is hidden.
And you're right, Tavleen, that it is a very complex topic, especially when we are looking at sales. But by no means was I saying that money is the only thing that's going to
Of
motivate
course.
a salesperson. Yeah, in fact, one of my during my sales training, one of my slides shows that the characteristics of a successful salesperson. There are 20 points, traits there, traits and skills that are required for them to be successful. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. And looking at what you have just mentioned about happiness, and this is probably the only question that I'm going to be focused on the pharma and biotech field, because generally what we are discussing today is not just honed in to pharma companies, but it is
Right.
universal for any company. Anyone who is listening in would find this useful. But this is probably the only question that is relevant to the pharma guys, because in the pharma and biotech industry is pretty high pressure, because of the long regulation, a long time it takes to get the products approved. They got to go through so many regulatory authorities, first in their home country and then in the country where they're going to also be launching their products if it is outside of their home country. So there are many regulations, very strict, because patients need to be protected. And then because of these, some of the founders go through stress, and therefore they transfer the stress to their people as well. So everybody goes through stress, and burnout is very common. So how would you define workplace happiness in such a context, and why is it a strategic advantage for founders to focus on this?
All right. So, James, I'm going to take maybe a little longer to answer this question, okay? Because to understand what happiness is, let us first understand what happiness is not. Because a lot of brands get confused with, they exactly do what happiness is not, which is they'll put some bean bags in the office and they would think, okay, I have created happiness, okay? I'll have a gym room or, sleeping room, and I have created happiness. Okay, I'm going to have some birthday celebrations, have some cupcakes, and yeah, I've created happiness. No, right? A brand, an organization can have all of this. I'm not saying these are not important, but when our efforts become limited to these, we are not creating happiness at our work. Okay. Now these cupcakes and bean bags and all these fancy stuff that is spread across, they do not really solve burnout, right? They they do not really solve any issue which is much deeper. If I'm going through stress, you know, a bean bag will not help me, right? If I'm going through stress, a cupcake will not help me. But what I see around is a lot of brands, they limit their employee engagement only to these superficial activities, right? And that is the message I want to spread, that employee engagement or meaning or purpose is not hidden in cupcakes or bean bags or confetti and parties. These could be very important, but again, when the person is going through stress and burnout, all these things do not help, right? So you're coming back to your question, then what should founders or organizations do, right? I think this answer again is not limited to pharma, okay? Because happiness, in a way, is not just limited to one industry. Happiness can be uh, copied, you know, in across the organizations and across the sector. So, what as an employee will make me happy is, let's say if I'm going through burnout, okay? What I would want as an employee is maybe my founder to have a listening round with me, sit with me and check with me what motivates me, okay? What challenge am I going through? And what support am I seeking? So maybe if founders, can sit with their teams, can do one-on-one sessions with their employees, because, I understand if an organization is bigger, this could be a little difficult, but with startups, this is absolutely doable, where they have very small team, have maybe, okay, let's have Friday conversation session. And these conversation sessions will be nothing about patent filing or cycle times or products. These Friday conversations can only be about what motivates you at work, what are the challenges you're going through, and please, hey, tell me what support are you looking at, so I think that those are the conversations which are going to remove burnout, which are going to remove this pressure of sales and targets. So the conversations, I think the biggest solution is having one-on-one conversation. Why I'm stressing on it? Because with startups and smaller organizations, this is one solution which is very doable. Ask your employees, what is that you would want to start doing? What is that one thing you would want to continue doing? And what is one thing you would want to stop doing? So start, stop, continue. That is something, one beautiful exercise that founders can do with their teams. And I think these are the real solutions. No cupcakes, no bean bags can solve the burnout. If the culture is toxic, one cupcake is not going to solve the problem, right?
I don't know if 10 cupcakes will solve the problem either.
Yeah, absolutely. Even 10 will not solve.
You know,
Right.
Tavleen, what you are mentioning reminds me of rewards programs, because what you're saying is that the rewards have to be tied into what the employee wants, and that may drive happiness, or may not. And so it comes to now, how will you know whether an employee is happy or not? Is
Okay.
it
All
just
right.
by physical, observations, or do you have to
Mm-hmm.
dig deeper through some assessments and stuff like that?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. How can you get to know that your employee is happy? There are multiple signals. There are multiple proxies to look at happiness. Let's say, am I someone who is recommending this brand to my friends, to my known ones as a good place to work? That is one signal that I'm happy where I am, right? So we call it, in HR terms, NPS, Net Promoter Score. So which means if I, as an employee, I'm happy to recommend this place to my known people, that's one signal that I'm okay, I'm doing good. You can look at metrics like how is your absenteeism rate? How frequently do people take leaves? Right? That's one metric which almost I think all organizations have. They have their leaves. You can look at the pattern. You can talk about what is your absenteeism rate, right? That's another signal to look at what are my patterns. If I'm someone who's an unhappy employee, or if I'm someone who's giving you a red flag, I will make more mistakes. So if I'm making more mistakes, it's a signal that I'm disengaged, I'm not happy. So, what's the error making pattern, or what's the error rate? That's another proxy to look at how satisfied or happy people are with me. As I said, absenteeism rate, how do I make mistakes? Uh, these are, and of course, to what extent I can go to my friends and promote it, right? These are some signals which will tell, am I engaged? Am I not so engaged? Also, how frequently do I take breaks in between the tasks? I'm taking a break after every 30 minutes, going out for a walk, coming back to my desk, and then doing something. So these again, if I'm taking too many breaks, this again could be a signal that I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. It could be because of the culture that I'm operating in. It could be because of other XYZ reasons, right? So these are some very uh, easy to identify, signals which can tell that, okay, are you as an employee happy, engaged, or are you someone who's not coming to office? You are taking, there's a pattern in your leaves. You're making mistakes when you are submitting your reports. There are a lot of errors in what you are doing. All these are signals for founders to sniff and figure out that something is wrong.
And also, I guess, productivity, because you use the word absenteeism. So presenteeism is also one of the
Yeah, but
giveaways.
I was reading a report. It was rather an article. Okay, that article says that people who are productive can be disengaged.
Okay,
Do not take productivity as a proxy for employee engagement. Why? Because I could be a productive employee because of my own personality, because I am like that, because I love working. It has nothing to do with the brand that I'm working with. If you remove me from brand A to brand B, I will still be the same in productivity. So that article beautifully says that when brands think that, okay, if this is a high performer, that means he's happy. No, performance is not equal to happiness. I can be the best performer yet very unhappy with the brand, because that performance is only coming from my personality trait, because I don't want to be seen as someone who is a non-performer. I take it as a, as a bloat on my personality. I don't want to be seen as a non-productive worker, but that doesn't guarantee that I'm happy with my brand. And I was literally, I in a way, I agreed with that article that yes, there are cases when top performers leave you like this when they have another offer, right?
great.
Most productive people could be the first one to leave you. That means
Yeah,
they were never happy here. The moment somebody gave them something extra, they left you.
yeah.
But they were high productive people, they were high performers. So, and of course, it's a very deep concept, but I so agreed to that article that yes, there are people who are productive, who are high performers, yet they're not happy.
And that reflects or emphasizes the point you had earlier made that bosses, whether founders or CEOs, have to sit down with their people,
Yes.
have a chat with them, because then you can probably discover this kind of stuff when you ask them what will make you engaged or happy in the workplace. And when you mentioned that, Tavleen, I just recalled that Gallup has consistently shown in their research that high performance is linked to high engagements. And now engagements all over the world, it seems to be dropping. So
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you, is there a correlation between happiness and engagement?
Okay. Yeah. So there are a lot of, studies which are connecting happiness with productivity, or meaning with productivity. There's a McKinsey report, which says that 70% of employees across the globe, okay, they look at, for them, the source of meaning and purpose comes from work. 70% employees across the globe, they seek their meaning in life and purpose in life from their work. Yet only 15% get it. Now look at it. 70% are wanting meaning from what they are doing, but only 15% uh, uh, get that meaning and purpose from their work. And when they don't get it, that's when the attrition is high, and other not very happy indicators. There's a beautiful research again done by Gallup, since you mentioned Gallup, where they studied 82,000 employees across 230 countries, right? And they found that employees who are happy, they are approximately 21% more productive, and they have 41% lesser absenteeism. So there are absolute studies which are connecting happiness with productivity. There's another beautiful, research done by, if I remember correctly, University of Warwick. So University of Warwick again did a study on happiness, and they found that happy employees are 13% more productive. So yes, research is connecting now happiness with length of tenure, happiness with intention to stay back, happiness with productivity. So I'm assuming, in times to come, matrix like meaning, purpose, and happiness, they'll become very important. And another, report that I'm reminded of, James, which is again by McKinsey, they found that this is in the context of Gen Z, because Gen Z is going to be, the future leaders. So that report said 87% of Gen Zs, they consider meaning and purpose before they join an organization. And 47% left when they did not find it. So, I think with this generation, concepts like meaning, mental health, well-being, deeper engagement, maybe they'll become more important, and because they also are able to now connect it with productivity. They're able to connect it with, well, I'll stay back if you give me meaning in my job. I can't keep doing something which has no meaning, So, coming back to the first question that we had, sales function, even if I look at the sales function with the lens of giving impact and giving meaning, I might start loving my job and I might want to stay back. But those conversations need to, happen very regularly. I cannot have appraisal conversation only once in a year. I need to have that quarterly or monthly. Okay, what motivates you? How can I give you that? So I think those are the real conversations we need to have.
And also coming further to that point, Tavleen, you are right that the engagement shouldn't be once a year or half yearly or quarterly. Now, what a lot of literature is showing also is that weekly, if possible, is great, because then you can be on top of things without micromanaging your people. And that could lead to happiness and engagement. So let me just make sure that I get this right, Tavleen. Can we say that engagement is synonymous with happiness? Can they be
Well,
used
James, I'm myself exploring that. I don't think I've come to that conclusion where happiness is equivalent to employee engagement. I think happiness could be the way I see it, it is an outcome of being engaged, right? If I'm engaged with my manager or with my brand or with my profile, I'm automatically happy. So I do not see them as equivalents. I see happiness as a consequence of employee engagement. So if we get employee engagement right, that is when we can say now our employees are happy.
Got it. So, which also
Yeah.
means, Tavleen, all this. I know a lot of companies do this every year, once a year. It is a requirement for HR, a KPI of HR, that they must produce and publicize the workplace satisfaction score. And
Yeah.
so they send out these satisfaction surveys. And you have not mentioned in our discussion so far, that word has not come up yet, satisfaction. So probably
Satisfaction.
that is a useless measure, if I may say so, and rather focus on measuring happiness and or engagement. And if you can do both, I think you are well on the way. Would that be correct, Tavleen?
Okay, so James, I have my reservations when it comes to these satisfaction surveys that you're talking about, workplace satisfaction surveys that you're talking about. I have my reservations, uh, because see, you look at these brands, you know, uh, uh, the list of brands that are, top 50 brands to work with according to workplace, satisfaction survey or whatever survey. Forbes has it. There are a lot of agencies which have these satisfaction surveys. But if you talk to their employees, you go to Glassdoor, you will find very different comments and replies. So I take these satisfaction surveys results with a pinch of salt. You know, am I pressurized to fill that survey? Okay, or am I just doing intimacy without even closing my eyes? I've not even read my questions correctly. So being a researcher myself, I sometimes I take these satisfaction surveys with a pinch of salt. For me, the real matrix is, am I able to find meaning in what I'm doing? Is my brand offering me that? Is my founder able to connect my work with my organization's mission and vision? Because a lot of employees, they do not even know, how is my work connecting with the broader mission? And that's what founders, be it from pharma, be it from any other industry, they need to continuously sit. What we do wrongly is we assume everybody knows their purpose. No, people do not know their purpose. People do not, let me tell you, majority of your employees, if you ask, you make them sit and ask, okay, tell me, how does your work connect with the broader mission and vision of the organization? They will not know. That is, that's the conversation we need to have. Do I know how me as a salesperson, how is my work, my contribution connecting with the overall mission of the brand? That is when I will feel engaged, and that is when I will feel, okay, my work is meaningful for this brand. So I don't trust these satisfaction surveys, honestly. I have my reservations. Uh, so I would think the world needs to move really beyond these surveys now and talk about real meaning, purpose, and happiness. That is the real indicator for me.
As you were answering, I was smiling because it reminded me of my son, my second son.
Okay.
He's in the IT field. And one day I asked him, do you know who the customers you serve are? Do you know how what you do impacts their lives? He has no clue. So he cannot connect. And this is what you mentioned. I don't know what the mission, why am I here? I'm
Yeah.
just getting stuff done, and I don't know. And also earlier you had mentioned about the interaction between the boss and their people, and I'm sure you are very familiar with this research that states that 70% of people leave their company not because of company policies
Because of
or
the boss.
hygienic. It's because of the boss. Exactly, it's the boss who is the culprit. So I hope bosses who are listening to this,
Yeah.
uh, appreciate that you can keep. You are the one who causes high retention or low retention, or
Right.
high turnover. So it's up to you. And from a behavioral perspective, Tavleen, um, what is the first mindset shift that leaders need to make in order to prioritize happiness and without compromising results or compliance to anything?
Right. But before I answer this question, James, I'm reminded of this beautiful, again, a survey by Gallup, which says that approximately some 70% of managers themselves are disengaged. So if I'm an employee, who is responsible to engage me? My manager himself is disengaged. So where do I go? Whom do I look up to when my manager himself is disengaged? Who is responsible for my engagement then? So it's a chain. And I was really amused at that Gallup survey, which says marriages themselves are disengaged. And that was across the globe. It's very, very few managers. I think if I remember the data correctly, it was only 15% of managers across the globe who were engaged. Rest were just close to some 70% are disengaged. So, as you said, I leave my organization not because of the policies, but because of the person I'm reporting to.
Yeah.
My direct manager. That's the reason I'm leaving. So yeah, because the poor fellow himself is disengaged, right?
Yeah.
So coming
So
to
yeah. So go
go
ahead.
on.
Go ahead. No,
Yeah.
no.
So
Go
coming
ahead.
to the part B of your question, you were talking about how what mindset shift founders
Mm.
can make, to
Yeah.
bring more happiness. I think uh, to begin with, my humble request would be stop start replacing cupcakes with conversations. That's the first, advice request uh, I would want to make, being an employee engagement enthusiast. Please do not substitute cupcakes and beanbags for deep conversations. Do not assume that since I have given them the best infrastructure, now they are happy. Do not assume that. So I
And
think
it's
for
so
me,
Sorry,
And it
go
is very
ahead, please.
simple. It is very simple. Just have conversation with them. So replace one C, which is cupcake, with another C, which is conversation. That's
One
the
C with
biggest
another.
mindset shift. Yes. If I think
Yeah,
brands
so
are able to do that, they'll be able to improve a lot of matrix.
So I like that, replace one C with another C, cupcakes with conversations. And conversations, how difficult can it be? Although it seems simple, but there is a process that, leaders need to learn because it doesn't come naturally to most of us because we need to listen, speak less, and let the other party speak. So it can be trained. It's a skill that people can develop, coaching skills. And this is where again, I'm sure you would have read this memes or comments where it says the great leaders are great coaches. And therefore, you got to ask, what is a great coach? Which we are not going to discuss today. And so, you have done a PhD in employer branding, which is a very interesting thesis by itself.
Hmm.
How can startups, and now just looking at startups only, how can they use happiness and a purpose driven culture as a real differentiator to attract and retain top talent and without, as you say, paint yourself so rosy that that you are not being truthful.
Okay. So, James, I usually do, an activity with the brands that I coach. I ask the employees and their managers also to make their own purpose statements. Okay. So, if I know what are top three, four values of my brand, okay, which again, it's the founders or the boss's responsibility to tell me what are the brand's values. And then I make them write their purpose statements. How am I going to contribute to this value A or value B or value C or value D? Okay. So maybe, let's say a brand has uh, integrity as their value. And if that is also a value which matches my personal value, I need to write my own purpose statement. Okay. How in the next quarter I'm going to deliver the value integrity and do this activity quarterly, repeatedly with them. And then establish yourself as an employer brand which really cultivates meaning and purpose at work. So you're not just giving them, okay, this is your task and this is what you need to do. You are continuously cultivating meaning and purpose at work by, re-editing your purpose statements, by revisiting your purpose statements. But all of this is only possible when the founder, the manager sits with the team, tells them what is the mission and vision of my organization, what are your personal values. Let's come to a point, where your values and my values align. Okay. So there's another, beautiful, since I'm a big fan of Gallup, or I think it's McKinsey, maybe I'm getting confused, but it's either of them. So they call it sweet spot. A spot, a point when an employee's value matches with an organizational value. That point is called sweet spot. So I think the founders need to identify that sweet spot. And one way to do that could be make them write their purpose statements and take it as a promise for the next 3 months. That, okay, I'm going to, as Tavleen, I'm going to deliver on this value for this quarter or this value for this one financial year, right? And have those conversations very regularly. And there are a couple of other frameworks which founders, chotu frameworks, small frameworks, which founders can take to build happiness. And when you start doing this, the word of mouth will spread. Okay, that this is a brand which does conversations like meaning and purpose in their appraisals, right? And that is when gradually you establish yourself as an employer brand, as a brand, which focuses on deeper things like meaning and purpose and happiness. So I found this purpose statement activity, which which could be a takeaway from this, for the listeners. Write your purpose statement. Sit with your manager, have a conversation, make a promise for the next quarter or a year, depending on what's the timeline you're looking at. That is something which really does wonders.
And that is such a powerful, innovative idea. It's very creative to get them to do this purpose activity because I can foresee how bosses, leaders can also use that to hold their people accountable, not just
Absolutely.
based on the KPIs, that is data, it's very objective, but this is kind of subjective and it's a great way to hold people accountable because you said it. It's not a KPI that is shoved down from the top, but this is something that you have developed. So I think that's a wonderful way to hold your people accountable. Now, we are now moving into this topic about hiring and promotions. Huh? And there is so much of, discussions about inclusivity and stuff like that. Um, there are biases in hiring and promotions, and these, creep in through biases, unconscious biases that all of us have. So within pharma, definitely this exists as well. So, what are some of the proven ways that leaders can identify and overcome these unconscious biases that exist in the hiring managers, and
Hmm.
therefore build, these inclusive teams?
Okay, I think James, I also feel inclusivity has been misunderstood a big time. See, if I am filling a position just because I have to bring, you know, diversity in my team, but that doesn't match the skill set, because I see a lot of brands doing it. Okay, they are doing inclusion just as checklist. And when they bring these people are not promoted because they just met the checklist, but their skills probably are not matching. But to show myself again as an employer of good choice who's following diversity matrix, who has a very inclusive team. But then later on, I am not really, you know, promoting uh, people because of the obvious reason that the skill set didn't match. But then why were those people hired if the skill set didn't match? Because the brand is chasing diversity matrix, because the brand is chasing this rut that everybody become wants to become inclusive. I think inclusion should always be need based. For me, inclusion is not accepting someone just because I have to fill my matrix. For me, inclusion as an HR person, I feel inclusion, really inclusion means not denying someone because of their minority status, right? Not selecting them because of it, but not rejecting them because of it is what inclusion is for me, right? Am I rejecting a particular gender because of, okay, she's a lady, she can't do sales? That's an unconscious bias for me, right? Females could be as fierce for sales role as men, you know but maybe a lot of brands, when they hire for sales function, they may have their own reservation. Should I really take a female? Or some brands could rather take more females because they feel, okay, let's present the female you know so I think for me, inclusion is really about not denying someone a job because of their XYZ status, not giving them because of that status. So am I hiring, let's say, a neurodivergent person only because of the fact that he's neurodivergent and I have to check my matrix? Or because no, he's uh, the right person skill wise, plus he's also neurodivergent, it's okay. But if it's only neurodivergent and I'm hiring him, because that person, when he joins, no, James, he feels very frustrated when he's not promoted. Because then he becomes just token, this is token hiring, right? You're hiring a third gender or a neurodivergent or anybody else, but you are not giving them the promotions that they deserve or they need, or you're giving them very basic profile. You're not giving them profiles, which are otherwise enriching. So this is, where inclusion is misunderstood. We are hiring people because of you have to check the matrix because the world is chasing diversity now. It's a beautiful thing, but it is not being implemented in the right way, is what I feel. I feel there are a lot of gaps, and then these people feel frustrated when they join.
Yes, and I am glad that you are being contrarian in your view because the whole world is talking about DEI. And what you're pointing out also is that if you don't employ a person based on their competency in getting the job done, as you said, they will be frustrated when they don't meet their KPIs, and therefore they will
Absolutely.
leave. Yeah, and therefore you'll have to go back to replacing or filling in that vacancy, and you're back in this rat race of keeping your DEI. And one of the things that I learned years ago, Tavleen, I'm not an HR person, but I was very fortunate that the company that I was with developed, and I'm talking about the year 2000, they developed a scientific system where you list down all the criteria of the person that needs, that you need for that job, and it is a weighted average system. So
Mm,
everybody that you interview, you will have to assign scores for each one of those criteria, and you tabulate everything at the end of the day, and you pick the person who has the highest score, no matter what you feel. So I
right.
don't know whether that is a great way to remove unconscious biasness, because sometimes
But
we have this confirmation bias as well. When someone who's attractive, and that has happened to me, Tavleen, to be
yeah,
very
yeah,
honest, where
absolutely.
you look for the qualities that you think the person has just to employ them, and then six
Right.
months later you regret your decision.
Right.
So
We call it, there's so many biases that come up in hiring. As you said, affinity bias. Okay, I feel I'm attracted to this person because, let's say, because of their persona, because of their personality, the way they are dressed up. There is some X factor in them, and I hire them. But when they joined, they're not able to walk the talk. Now it is actually not an employee's problem. It was the interviewer's problem because he got stuck in that unconscious bias. Okay, let's say someone who has done graduation from the same college where I was from. That that gives a soft corner. That's called similarity bias. Okay, you're similar to me. I see myself in you, and I end up hiring them. Right. I can share examples of, like, what we call halo effect. Halo effect is like, when you make a decision on the basis of the first positive trait that you see. Okay, so let's say a person who has entered the room and he or she is so decked up nicely, beautifully dressed. If it's a man, it's clean shaven. If it's a girl, very nicely dressed in beautiful formals and very well spoken. Only this personality criteria becomes the criteria for me to judge. And unconsciously, I'm ignoring a lot of other red flags that she could be showing me because I'm so wooed by her personality, that halo effect that we get stuck into. I end up selecting her. Or James, it could also be because, personality wise, somebody is not that appealing. Okay, no, didn't shave that day. So I'm not going to hire him. But and that's called horn effect. That is also something we do unconsciously when we reject someone on the basis of one wrong trait. But that person otherwise could be a good fit for the profile. But I didn't give that person a really fair chance throughout the interview. I was only, in my own head, I was already making a decision. Not dressed up nicely. He will not be able to survive in my brand. But what if that person was actually right for the profile? He had the technical skills. So, we end up making what we call type 2 and type 1 error in hiring. Type 1 error is selecting the wrong candidate, and type 2 is rejecting the right one. So because of these unconscious biases, we end up making type 1 error and type 2 error. We have selected the wrong one, rejected the right one. And
okay.
then the loop repeats, and research says that it is 400 times more costly to replace an employee than the salary we were giving him. So if you fire me tomorrow, it's going to cost you 400 times more than my salary to find my replacement, to train them, give them 180 days to at least start understanding the culture. The rule of thumb is give them 180 days. So all this costs 400 times more than what you were giving me. And it can be solved by just one solution, James. That is to train the interviewers, not the interviewees. We spend so much time, the world is guiding job seekers. This is how you should answer a question. This is how you should dress up. This is how you should take first question. This is how you should approach. Okay, tell me something about yourself. But we are not doing enough trainings for the interviewers. And that's where the gap is. You train people on unconscious biases where these hiring decisions, you don't make errors in those decisions.
Yeah, totally agree, Tavleen, that the focus has been wrong all this while. And did you say, so that 400, it costs 400 times the person's salary to replace them. I guess that depends on their job level as
Yeah, of
well
course, of
as
course.
they are producing, what their outcome is as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's now very clear. Get your systems right.
Yeah.
Train your hiring managers, whoever they are, to conduct these interviews effectively. And once the people are in place, and I'm sure a lot of companies still have hybrid and remote roles as well. I don't think any company has gone totally on site because there are
Hmm.
certain roles that need to be remote. So in those kind of situations, how can leaders keep purpose and happiness alive when people are split apart?
Hmm.
It could be across labs, or it could be across offices, globally as well. So how can they do that?
Right. Uh, See, again, the founders, the owners, the managers, they need to understand that it's only the place that changes, right? And happiness and employee engagement is not limited to bricks.
Yeah.
It's only the place which is changing. Even online, virtually, you can connect with employees as equally, as beautifully as you were doing with them, offline. So you're talking about another mindset. Now, I think another mindset shift that we can give our listeners is that the happiness and employee engagement is not limited to your walls. It is in the culture, right? It is how my manager, does a conversation with me. It is the psychological safety that I feel, in my work. That is what happiness is. Do I really feel psychologically safe here? By that I mean, let's say, uh, there's a meeting going on. Now, do I feel safe to give my inputs? Right? And a lot of employees, okay, let me tell you, a lot of employees do not feel psychological safety, especially in virtual meetings.
Hmm.
They do not feel that psychological safety. There are research papers which talk about how psychological safety has reduced in remote work and hybrid work. Right, but we also understand that it is the only new reality. The world is not, a lot of organizations are not going back to work from office completely. It's either going to be work from home completely or hybrid. So when that is now the accepted new reality, we need to talk about, okay, how can I create engagement, happiness within these structures? Again, the solutions are same, I would say, James. Meet them regularly, right? I would also say one very quick solution is have rotations in meetings. Who is going to initiate the meeting today? Have those people on rotation because then you are encouraging everyone to speak. So if today, on this Friday, I started the meeting, how am I feeling? Next week, somebody else will start. So have these people on rotation so that they feel they are being equally involved. They can bring out their concerns, right? But again, about all these initiatives are fine. But if my higher up doesn't believe in engagement and happiness, nothing will work. So the founder has to first buy this concept that happiness is beyond cupcakes, beyond the walls, beyond any of these superficial things. It is in the conversations, it is in the respect, it is in the support, it is in the language, right? It is in the acceptance, it is in all of this. There is no only one way to do happiness. You can do one way, you can take one metric at a time, but happiness comes from a lot of things, which is, I would again say, not limited to tricks. And have weekly conversations with them, have people rotate them in virtual meetings, create psychological safety. So this is what I can think of.
And you have given so many, so much of input here, fresh ideas that people can implement. I like very much the one about, rotating the meeting owner, get them to take turns to hold the meeting. And I love so much what you have just said. I just wrote it down. Don't limit your mind to bricks. Purpose does not need to be limited to bricks. I like that so much, and to walls. So I think what leaders ought to learn is don't be a slave to the walls and bricks
Yes,
of your office, because we can go beyond the same way. Tavleen and I, we are a few
absolutely.
hundred or thousand miles away, and we can still communicate using Zoom. So I think leaders need to adapt and embrace technology as well. And it doesn't even
Absolutely.
always have to be, even a phone can be used as well. Phone call, WhatsApp, videos, and so on. So it's all, we limit ourselves um, according to our creativity, you know? Yeah, so great
Totally.
point. I really love it, break down the bricks and the walls. That is so 20th century, right?
Yeah, also because, James, the new reality is work from home and hybrid. There are so many brands, they have no plans to go work from office all 5 days a week. So when it is a new reality, you will have to figure out ways how to still keep employees engaged within virtual, you know, mode when they don't meet each other face to face regularly. They will have to create ways to make them engaged.
And I don't know, Tavlin, if you have heard about this, but I'm sure the people, in the pharmaceuticals, biotech, medical device industry, they know that even surgery now is being done remotely
Yeah,
by surgeons, hundreds of miles away. They just operate the robot or whatever technology that they're using for interventions, healthcare interventions. So if that works, there's no reason why a simple conversation cannot be done
cannot
virtually.
work.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. So it can be done. So, Tavleen, we have had a very intense discussion about this topic about happiness. And so, to summarize as a takeaway for founders, whatever founders, it need not necessarily be pharma or within healthcare, it can be anywhere. What practical action can they take? One practical action they can take in the next 7 days to boost workplace happiness.
Okay. So I think one very quick, doable solution, which can be done online, which can be done in the office, which can be done over the phone, is sit with, your employees, preferably one-on-one, and ask them just three questions in the next 1 week. What motivates you? Okay. What challenges are you facing currently? And what support do you seek from us? So maybe a 30 minutes conversation, you know, you can call it a catch up conversation, you can call it a happy conversation, or you can call it, any conversation, but this is something which can be done online, offline, over phone, over Zoom. But make sure you do that in the next 7 to 10 days. If you do that, I'm sure you will be able to. I mean, I'll be happy to see what results come out of it, because I visualize it that it will be a great solution if brands start doing just this one activity. Three questions: what motivates you? What are the challenges you're facing currently? And what support do you need from us? Trust me, James, if this is done correctly, lot of stuff can be taken care of.
And what you are just mentioning, these questions that you just mentioned, Tavli, they remind me so much of the GROW coaching method, which is very
Grow.
similar to.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Goal, reality, options, and way forward. Totally.
Exactly. Yes.
Totally.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that what motivates you is probably the first question you ask before the grow questions, and it's so powerful because you get to understand the person beyond just the
Absolutely.
work. Yeah. So,
Totally.
Tavleen, this has been a wonderful discussion. I've learned so much, and I hope those who are watching would also learn a lot as well. This is going to be not just workplace changing, this is also going to be life changing because I'm sure they can use this in their relationships as well. These
Wow.
simple
I'll be
questions, the last questions for sure, you know, any relationship you ask these questions, it is going to improve for sure. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, Tavlin, how can they do that?
okay. So they can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. They can DM me, and if they seek solutions, I'll be more than happy to help individuals or brands who are aspiring to, make engagement and happiness and purpose as one of their key metrics. So I'll be more than happy. Please just DM me on LinkedIn. I'm very active. Connect with me. Send me a request. I'm sure I'm gonna accept the request. So yeah, and then we'll do one more podcast about the results of this.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That would be a great follow-up to this.
Yes.
So, listeners and viewers of this podcast, right below this in the description box, I put Tavleen's LinkedIn profile. So you just click on that and reach out to her if you would like to work with her and get her input on how you can boost your company's performance by working with your people and making them happy. And for those of you who are here on this channel for the very first time, please subscribe, click the bell icon, and select all notifications so that all future podcasts that we release, you will be notified. So thank you very much once again. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.